Hello.
Hey, Maddie. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for your presentation.
Me too. Finally here.
You're just excited to be done.
Yes.
Alexa went on Monday and like there were some hiccups with the amount of time that they gave her.
Mm-hmm.
She only had 15 minutes to present. I
Oh my
know.
goodness.
I know.
Oh gosh. I
Yeah.
would be, yeah, no.
No. But she's excited to be done. So
Yeah. Yeah. We both.
yeah,
It feels like we've been doing this for so long.
I know. And that's kind of a bummer for her to have like months of planning.
Yeah, that makes
Went
no
down to
sense
15
actually.
minutes.
That makes no sense.
Anyway, okay, while we're thinking of this, I'm gonna make you the co-host so you can share your slides. We're already recording.
Okay. Yeah, I'm up in the attic.
Hi, Delisa. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello.
We're just waiting for everybody else to log in, so we'll probably get started maybe just a smidge after 12 o'clock. Hi, Heather. Welcome. Nice to have you join us today.
Thanks.
So I see it's 12 o'clock. We're going to give, because I know about 17 people signed up for a class today. So we're going to give just a few more minutes for people to join and log in. Because if you're like anybody else with Zoom these days, I typically join like right at the time that the class is. So just sit tight. We'll get started in a few minutes. Hi, Melissa. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Hi, Megan.
We're just waiting for a few more people to hop on and then we'll get started.
Okay. I have to walk a kiddo to the bus in a little bit. So I'm going to maybe put my screen on dark and listen, but just wanted to let you know.
That's fine. Where is
But I'm looking
he
forward to it.
taking the bus to at 12 o'clock?
Half day kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Got it. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Hi, Kelsey. Welcome. We're going to get started here shortly. Thanks for joining us today. All right, it is 12:03. So we are going to get started for the sake of time because Maddie, our presenter today, has prepared a lot of good information to share with you all. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm just going to introduce Maddie, our presenter. Madi Marks is a Penn State nutrition graduate student. She is getting her master's degree in nutrition, and she's on her way to become a registered dietitian. She graduates in May, and then she'll sit for her RD exam probably sometime soon after that. She has been with the Salvation Army for over a year at this point. She started off doing an internship with us and then came back for her capstone project this year. And this is the result of her capstone project, this presentation for you all today. So I'm going to turn the floor over to her, and we're all looking forward to hearing what she has to share with us.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. As Megan said, my name is Maddie. Thank you guys so much for signing up to listen to my course, again, as part of my final project. So we can go ahead and get started. This is healthy habits for your toddler, covering the subtopics of picky eating, body image, and nighttime routines. So again, as Megan said, I'm a graduate student and wanted to give a little disclaimer. I'm not a parent, so by no means am I telling anyone how they should parent or trying to change what you're already doing at home. At the same time, I'm not a doctor or medical professional or anything like that. So this is all just information that I found from researching. So just general healthy lifestyle based information. Not everything is going to work for everyone, and it shouldn't substitute anything that like a doctor's told you or anything like that. Just wanted to get that out there first. So today the topics that we're going to cover are what makes a healthy lifestyle, forming healthy habits, breaking unhealthy habits, health in childhood and parental involvement, and picky eating, body image, and nighttime routines. Again, I'm going to go over general information on each of these, why they're important, and then I have a lot of specific tips for each of these that I'm going to go over. And I also have a handout that I made with all the tips to give to you guys afterwards too. So if you don't catch all of them, don't worry, you'll get a big list of all of them at the end as well. So first, can't have a Zoom meeting without an icebreaker. So if you feel comfortable, you can either unmute yourself or just type it in the chat. I can't see the chat, but maybe Megan can read out the answers in there for me. But so you can just share your name, how many children you have and their ages, and then either like your number one parenting tip or if not, just one thing you are hoping to get out of this lesson.
Are you looking for a first
Go
volunteer?
ahead.
Hi, I'm Melissa. This is my littlest Mason.
Hello.
He is 1 and he has 2 older brothers. They are 5 and 7. So 3 boys. And I guess my number 1 parenting tip would be don't stress about any challenges, because as soon as you get used to something, something else new happens. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like there's always new milestones, always new things to celebrate. And as soon as you get stressed out about something, it's like gone and they're on to the next thing. So things don't generally last like too long. Give yourself some grace there if you're struggling with something, because they'll learn a new skill and overcome it and be on to the next thing. So
Thanks, Melissa. And hi, Mason.
Say, I need a haircut, but mommy doesn't want to give me my first haircut because all my curls will go away.
Oh.
And just to pop in and share what's been shared on the chat so far. So Christina Carden is with us today. She has a 1-year-old and a 13-year-old. She didn't share a tip, but Delisa Baldwin is also on today. She has an almost 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. She didn't share a tip yet either. And if you don't have a tip, it's okay. You don't have to share that. Kelsey Purnell jumped on and she said she has a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. And her best tip is that there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. And that's actually from the Beatles.
I like that.
Thank you for sharing, everybody.
Okay. I will hop right in here. Okay, so starting off, before I get into the specifics of the nighttime routines and picky eating and things like that, just wanted to give an overview of what makes a healthy habit, what are healthy habits, how can you form healthy habits in general, and kind of lay the groundwork for the more specific tips that are going to be later on in the presentation. So what is a healthy habit? So a habit is a behavior repeated daily, weekly, just consistently in general. Sometimes it can be repeated so often that you don't even realize that you're doing it. It's automatic. Maybe like you wake up, you brush your teeth. That's just, you always do it every single time. You don't even think about doing it maybe. Mine is my contacts because I can't see anything without them. So I never forget to put my contacts in, for example. So they are observable, predictable, and repetitive. So does anyone, again, you can either unmute yourself or just type it in the chat. Does anyone want to share an example that they can think of a healthy lifestyle, a healthy habit that they currently are doing, anything along those lines?
In the chat, so things are coming in the chat, so I'll read as they come in. So Christina said she tries not to eat a lot of fast food. Melissa said, also along the lines of eating, they eat together. They eat dinner together as a family. That's a healthy habit.
That's a good one. Nice. All right, well, I'm going to give you some more, so that's fine, that's all there is. Okay, so the main basic factors of a healthy lifestyle are going to be eating a varied diet, getting frequent physical activity, time management, healthy thinking, and stress relief. So you can see it's kind of a mix of physical health and also mental and emotional health, which I think is something that usually gets overlooked when thinking of what makes someone healthy, and what makes up a healthy lifestyle is also mental health is a big part of that too, which is why when Megan and I were coming up with the topics for this, we wanted to include body image to kind of get that mental health aspect of everything too. So again, just some general overall basic tips for healthy living. Again, I'll go into more specifics later, but these can be done by your whole family and are just general go-to tips are to stock up on healthy groceries as much as possible. Um, Eat a lot of fruits and veggies. Again, there's the family meals, no distractions. That's going to be really big. Also, we'll talk about that more in the picky eating part, but eating together as a family as much as possible with no distractions, no TV, just enjoying each other's company, especially with younger children. That's going to be really important. Avoiding sugar sweetened beverages as much as possible, soda, juice, just having that every once in a while and substituting that for things like water or milk. Having generally like less than 2 hours of screens every day. Again, this might be different for your individual family, but that's kind of just a rule of thumb is to try to limit them as much as possible. And then oral hygiene, general hygiene is going to be an important part of healthy living as well. Okay, so next is why is forming healthy habits important to start in childhood? So childhood, early and middle stages of development are key in forming foundational health. So approximately birth to age 12 is going to be really crucial in forming the habits that are going to last a lifetime for children. This is because in these early ages, kids are really doing a lot of developing. As you all know, I'm sure, their brain and motor skills really begin to ramp up in this toddler era, I guess. So that's why we're talking about forming these habits early on in childhood, because they're more likely to stick and last them a lifetime. So the link between health and behavior. So a lot of the more prevalent diseases today are linked to behavior. So type 2 diabetes, heart disease, things like that are more controllable by behavior. So by implementing these healthy habits early on in your child's lives, it's more likely that they're going to have lower risk of disease and have lower susceptibility for the rest of their life for these kinds of diseases if they're participating in these healthy behaviors from as early as childhood. So the parental role, or the role that their caregivers play. So I'm sure most of you know this, but you are their number one role model and their biggest influence. So sometimes parents might not realize how much of a role they play, but it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. So whatever you're doing, not only whatever you're doing, but also whatever you're telling them and helping them learn and implementing in your house is really going to be what influences the habits that they have and that they're doing for the rest of their lives. So in doing my research, the number one most influential factor to a child's physical and mental development is nurturing care, which is basically providing love and support, being involved, being sensitive and responsive to a child's needs and development. So very, very important. I'll talk about this in each of the subtopics too, but really remembering the role that you play and the influence that you can have on your children and their habits and their lifestyle. So next, again, you can just type in the chat and Megan can share the answers, or you can unmute yourself if you want. But how long do you think it takes to form a habit? Options are 21 days, 45 days, or 66 days.
Everybody except one person so far has said 21 days. Another said 66. So we're definitely thinking on the 21-day side.
Okay. All right. So that is not surprising to me. I put it in here because that is what I feel like everywhere says. Like that's what I thought it was at first too, because I feel like everywhere it says it's 21 days. So I actually found a study that said it is closer to about 66 days, or like 2 months, as opposed to less than 1 month. Again, this might differ from person to person. So it could be more like 21 days in some people, but the general time that it takes is more like 66 or maybe even more. So that was something that I was surprised about when I was doing this research. But this is also for it to be like more automatic. So maybe after the 21 days, it's a habit, but you still have to like think about doing it. But then the 66 days is more of like, you don't even think about doing it, maybe. But also something interesting that I wanted to point out here, and I will continue to point out in the rest of this, was that researchers found that by just missing one or a few opportunities to do the behavior did not affect the overall habit forming process. So I know I'm super hard on myself when I am like
Yeah,
trying
it's 50, but
to
I haven't been out.
have
I'm
a
about
new
to
healthy
go out in a
habit or
minute.
something like that, and maybe I forget one day, or am slacking or something, and I get discouraged and I am tempted to give up or something. But researchers have found if you forget a day or two, it doesn't have an overall effect on forming the habit in the end. So you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to miss the behavior every now and then, and and you can still end up with the results that you want. So just a reminder to not be discouraged and to be as consistent as you can, but you're allowed to make mistakes. Just be patient and kind to yourself, and it doesn't really have an overall effect on the behavior anyways. So I thought that was something important to point out. Okay, so then this is just kind of a general overview of how to form a habit in the first place. So again, like I mentioned, takes time. Like anything else, sudden radical changes aren't going to help you with change and success in the long run. So maybe by making a lot of big changes at the beginning are helpful at first, but that's not really going to be what helps you to make lifelong changes for the rest of your life. So it's better to set small, achievable goals and then work up to bigger and more things. So the process that I have highlighted here is reflect, replace, reinforce. So reflect on specific habits, both good and bad, and their common triggers. So for example, maybe you notice that your child always wants a sweet treat right, maybe like in the afternoon as a pick me up. It's always, that's whenever they have it, is always in the afternoon, and it's always candy or something sweet. So you're going to reflect and identify that that's the habit that is going on. Next, you're going to replace the unhealthy habits with ones that are healthier. So once you've identified, okay, they always have something sweet, maybe you start replacing it with fruit every other day, or cheese and crackers or something, but you just start replacing it. And again, don't try to completely overhaul and change everything at once, but maybe every few days or every now and then you replace it with something a little healthier. And then finally, reinforce. So you're going to reinforce the new healthier habits. So be patient. Again, habits take time to develop and it doesn't happen overnight. So just be patient and kind to yourself, and be patient with your kids too, because it'll take time. So next, what if you think your child already has bad habits? Is, you know, how do you break these bad habits that are already in place? So some examples of, and bad habits, more like unhealthy habits or not as preferable habits instead, maybe like using screens right before bed, snacking on junk food, a lack of hygiene, or negative self-talk are all examples of more on the unhealthier side of habits. So first, it's important to understand why unhealthy habits are happening. So normally the unhealthy habits are a coping strategy use to soothe or comfort when your child may fall back on these maybe when they're stressed, bored, frustrated, unhappy, tired, something like that. So it's important to understand what's triggering and why these unhealthy habits are happening in the first place. For example, they always want maybe something sweet again when they're feeling stressed or when they had a bad day at school, but figuring out why they're happening and what the underlying issue is there is going to be helpful. And the second thing is that sometimes it could just be a phase that your child is going to grow out of. One of the survey responses said that their child likes to separate all their foods and not have anything touch. I know I used to do that when I was little, and now the more they're touching, the better. So that could just be a phase that they're going to grow out of. So try to be, try not to worry too much because it could just be kids being kids, and it could just be something that they're going to grow out of there. So some general tips for breaking bad habits, making a note of the triggers, again, understanding why or when it's happening. Give it as little attention as possible. So even if it's negative attention, it could actually encourage them to do the behavior even more. Give positive praise for good behavior and what you want to see more of. So again, the replacing the unwanted behavior with the positive behavior, and just having open conversation and discussion. So once you figure out what those triggers are, maybe, okay, you had a bad day today. Why? What's going on? How can I help? Things like that. Just being there for your child as much as you can. If anyone has any questions at any time, also feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so now going into the subtopics. So starting off with picky eating. So what is picky eating? So picky or fussy eaters have very strong food preferences that may cause them to not only reject trying new foods, but also maybe foods that they normally loved. They're now rejecting those as well. So picky eating can start to become a problem. Again, I said it could just be a phase in childhood, but the reason why I'm providing tips on it today and why we want to try to combat it as much as we can is it becomes problematic once it carries into adulthood. So say your child never learned to like vegetables, or they were super picky as a kid. Now and I use my boyfriend as this example, he still refuses to eat vegetables, doesn't eat fruit, nothing like that, because his mom never made him eat it when he was a kid. So that's when it could start to become problematic, is once they're into adulthood and still haven't grown out of these tendencies. It's a lot harder to get an adult to eat vegetables than it is to that hasn't been eating them for their entire life, compared to someone who's grown up eating these things and being exposed to these things and has been taught to like them from an early age. So that's why we want to kind of be cautious of this and try to combat it as much as we can. Again, there's only so much you can do, but trying to do little things to encourage your kids to eat a variety as much as possible. So to compare, what does healthy eating look like? So healthy eating is simply just eating a variety. So fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. And it's important to eat a variety because this is going to ensure that you get enough nutrients, protein, carbs, fat, vitamins, minerals, and calories. So again, this is going to be important for children because so much development and growth is going on. I'll go into that more in the next slide, but by getting a variety, you're making sure that you're covering all your bases, kind of. So why is healthy eating important? So poorly nourished kids can lack the nutrients that they need for healthy growth and development. They could be over or underweight, have weaker immune systems, or increased risk of illness or disease. And then on the other hand, healthy eating can help your child to feel good, stay at or reach a healthy weight, have enough energy for school and play, and it can help them to develop and grow properly. So some general tips, just again, this is just general healthy eating tips that you can apply to your whole family, is to have fresh whenever possible, minimally processed as much as you can, limit your added sugar as much as possible, and try to stick to lean proteins, reduced fat dairy, whole grains, again, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Um, as much as possible. I know that it's not always possible. So just whenever you can trying to make a conscious effort um, is going to make a big difference in the eating habits of your family. Okay, so now getting into the specific tips and tactics. Again, I made a handout with all of the tips and more explanation on each one that we'll be sending out after this course. So if you don't remember all of them, totally fine. I just wanted to give you guys like a easy, you can print it out, easy way that you can just refer back to that if you don't remember everything we talk about today. So the first tip is going to be to help your child learn to listen to their internal cues and the amounts they fluctuate, the amounts they eat may fluctuate day to day. So toddlers' appetite can fluctuate by up to 30% every day. A lot of times parents are worried that their kid isn't eating enough, and that's when they start to push them to eat more. But really kids have a pretty good idea of how much they're eating. That's where the internal cues come in, is you want to help your child to learn to listen to their body and to stop when they're full and to eat when they're hungry. So by pushing and telling them to finish their plate, you're teaching them to ignore these internal cues and to keep eating past the point of being full. So that is something that's very common, is, you know, you're told to finish your plate, you're told to eat more, but that is actually going to discourage children from listening to these internal cues that everyone has, and actually make them more likely to overeat. The next tip is frequent repeated exposure. So something new that I learned in my research was that it can take 20 to 30 times offering a new food before your child becomes familiar with it and accepts it. So don't get discouraged if you offer it 5 or 10 times. It could take even double that for them to start liking it. So again, just be patient and don't give up, just keep trying. Every child is different, so it could take less than that, could take more than that, but around 20 to 30 is what the research shows, which I thought was very interesting because I thought it was way less than that. So just again, being patient and persistent there. The next tip is flavor conditioning or pairing. So this is basically pairing foods that your child is familiar with or you know that they already like with these new foods. For example, I can think of like when my parents were trying to get me to like green beans, they knew I loved cheese. So they would put green beans with Parmesan cheese and like butter on it. And that was how I started liking them, was because they weren't plain, they had cheese on it and I love cheese. So pairing foods that they already like with the new foods can be helpful there to encourage them to start to like these new foods because they're with familiar foods that they already know. Next, again, I know we mentioned this earlier, but family meals as much as possible is going to be important. Not only everyone eating together, but also making sure that everyone is eating the same thing. So like if you don't like something or you aren't eating your vegetables, then your kid is more likely to pick up on this and say, well, you're not eating your vegetables. Why do I have to eat my vegetables? So just being aware of that and at least pretending to be eating your vegetables if you don't like them, to get your kid to eat them or try them, and not having separate meals for every person in the family. I know that this is probably very common too, because you just want them to eat something, but avoiding that as much as possible because your kid is going to pick up on that and notice or want that too. If there's a better option, they're going to want that too. So being cautious of this. I know sometimes it's unavoidable, but trying to be aware of that as much as possible. And then share the responsibility. This is also common in all the subtopics, but by you providing healthy options, then your child can pick between them. So it gives them a role in the process and help them, and then they can have a responsibility to pick what they're having. So you, for example, a healthy snack, you have an apple or a banana, so they're both healthy, and then they can pick which one they want. So it's still their choice, but really you gave them the options. And then use knowledge to reinforce, talk about food groups, why they're important. If your kids are older, have them help you cook or pick what's for dinner, things like that. Again, don't push, don't tell them to finish their plate, things like that, and just continue to be patient. Create a positive environment, so no distractions, eat as a family, and healthy choices for dinners and snacks as much as possible. Okay, so next we will go into body image. So what is body image? Body image is the physical perception that someone has of themselves, or just generally how we feel about our bodies, and can be negative, positive, or a combination of both. So a question for everyone, you can just send it in the chat and Megan can share them for us. But what age do you think that body image starts to develop?
I'm just waiting for a few of them to come in.
Okay.
I have Kelsey said 2, Delisa and Heather said 3. While I wait for other people to put their numbers in, could I ask a question from the previous slide, Maddie?
Yeah.
So I don't know where I heard this, but I just want to know if you learned anything from your research. The like flavor conditioning, pairing, food chaining, family meals part. Is it I heard that if you have a family meal, like you have your meal and what's presented to them, and then the children can't get something different. Like it's advisable to not have a child choose something different than what's presented on the table, but they can pick different options that are on the table, but just not have like something else that hasn't been prepared for them. Is that like recommended, or is that cruel?
Yeah, so it's not recommended to be making different meals for every person, because then you get into making 6 different dinners for one dinner. So I know that, and when I was doing the research, that was something that people were saying they struggled with, because they're like, okay, well then my kid's not going to eat, but you know, the research was kind of like, well, if they're really hungry, they'll eat. So I was kind of like, okay, I don't know about that. But basically it was to try not to make 5 different dinners. And to, again, like you can pick, here's the options that I'm giving you. You can pick from these. You don't have to have all of this, but this is what the options are. And you have to pick from those instead of making something special or different for them.
Okay, thanks. That answers my question.
Yeah.
So back to your other slide, between 2 and 3 years old is what the audience is saying.
Okay. Yep. So it is 3. I didn't know that, so I'm glad that other people did, because I did not know that it started that early. So at as young as 3 years old, kids can begin to develop an idea of body image. They may not fully understand it or know what it means necessarily, but they can begin to internalize stereotypes and form these positive or negative associations with body types and sizes. So there is this age of innocence misconception that people might believe that their child has no concept of this. They're too young to know about body size. They're too young to start developing an unhealthy relationship with their body, or eating disorder like tendencies, but it really can start as young as 3 years old. Again, they may not fully understand it, but it can start that young to have an stereotypes and internalized association with it, which I thought was very interesting. Oh, I didn't know it did that little swirl thing. That was cool. So influences on body image can come from school, can come from their peers, family, diet culture, and media. So we're going to go more into all of these. But again, parents and family members are going to play the biggest role in influencing how your child feels about their body. And the media can also be a super, super big influence. Okay, so next is, why is body image important? So poor body image can be associated with mental health concerns, depression, anxiety, eating disorders. Again, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but mental health is really downplayed in our society when it comes to just talking about health in general. But it is super important starting at an early age to be aware of and to keep an eye on your child's mental health and the signs of things like eating disorders or mental health concerns. And then positive body image can help your child's confidence, have high self-esteem, be happier and more comfortable in their own skin. And again, any body image issues that are starting this early on in a child's life are likely to persist into the rest of their life, which is kind of the theme of all this, but why we're talking about it so young, as you want to start these healthy practices from an early age. So just some general, again, I do this for each one, but just general advice for body image. Let your child know they're doing well. So not just providing compliments on how they look, but how they're doing, what makes them different, offering praise, letting them know that you love them and that you're proud of them. Again, just making them feel loved and encouraging them outside of how they look, but also how they're doing and what makes them different from everyone else. So specific tips and tactics. So number one, again, be a role model and remember your influence. So I really want to encourage you to take a look at your own body image and how you feel about your own body, how you may speak about, you might not even realize it, but how you speak about your body and the bodies of others. If you're always dieting or doing something like that, all of that is going to have an impact on your children and your family. So avoid making negative comments or comparing your body to others, comparing others' bodies to others, comments about your child's body, anything like that. Just avoid that as much as you can, especially in front of your kids, of course. And then I would recommend that you avoid dieting unless you're doing it with the help of a professional. Again, and don't encourage your children to diet unless advised by a professional. Dieting done incorrectly or without the help of a professional can be very dangerous. So being wary of that as well, and using professional help, asking Megan, anything like that before you jump into a diet, and encourage your child to diet as well. Next is going to be prioritize health, not weight. This is super important. I'm a super big believer in this just in general, but especially teaching your kids from an early on that you should be eating well and exercising to feel good and to be healthy and to have enough energy, not to reach a certain number on a scale. Again, if you've been told by a medical professional that you need to be doing this certain regimen, then don't exchange my advice for that. But in general, do physical activity and eat well to be healthy, not to look a certain way. And this is going to be important too, because if you are avoiding avoiding too much pressure on physical appearances, then your child is going to do that too. And again, there's the physical activity. So doing that more for enjoyment. Most kids don't need to be like working out, but more of activities for fun, like playing in the yard, going on a family walk or a family bike ride, doing sports, swimming, backyard games, anything like that. But things that kids enjoy and that are going to bond your family together. Monitor their exposure to harmful media and bullies. Kids can be mean, so watch out for bullies. Talk to your kid about what's going on in school. Listen to their concerns as they get older. and things like that. And limiting their exposure to harmful media and media talking about the importance of thinness in media. I'll talk about this a little more with the last one with the diet culture language, but just kind of being aware of what they're looking at or listening to or watching in the media. And then this one is probably the most important, but build their self-esteem outside of their physical looks. So you can provide compliments on their physical looks. That's important too, to build up their self-esteem, but also outside of their physical looks. So their health, their personality, their achievements in school, other healthy lifestyle choices, really build them up outside of just how they look, so that then they're not attaching doing well and being healthy to how they look, but okay, I'm a good person, I'm doing well in school, this is what is associated with doing well and getting praise from my parents and things like that. And then avoid pushing them beyond their abilities in school, sports, or other activities is also going to help maintain their self-esteem. Still push them to do their best, but don't push them beyond what they're physically capable of, or put too much pressure on them if you can. And then again, praise them for things that make them different from other people, and why it makes them great. And it may make them different than other people, but it's not bad because it's different. And then this one is also super important. Be cautious of diet culture language. This is everywhere these days. So if you're watching TV or looking at something online with your kids, maybe pointing out like, okay, that model has been retouched. People don't normally look like that. Their skin, pointing out and making them aware of the things that are changed in the media, so that they're not growing up with this like perfect expectation of how people actually look. So helping them understand what the media does to change our perception of people and advertisements and things like that. And then the other point here with diet culture language is going to be to avoiding verbal labels like good or bad foods. So by calling foods good or bad is actually could lead to a more negative relationship with the food, and maybe create feelings of guilt associated with having too many bad foods. Could influence the belief that all bad foods need to be completely removed from the diet. In college, when I was working with like some 3 and 4-year-olds and teaching nutrition to them, we would call them always foods and sometimes foods. So again, encouraging them to, or trying to discourage this negative relationship with food from such an early age that, bad foods, people say that all the time, but trying to just be more cautious and aware of the language that you're using is going to make a big difference. So before nighttime routines, does anyone have any questions or anything on the body image part? We can do general questions at the end too, but any burning questions now? Okay, so finally, what is a nighttime routine? So a nighttime routine is going to be consistent, repetitive activities that help your child to relax and wind down. The main components are nutrition, hygiene, communication, and physical contact. So the importance of nighttime routines: having a healthy, consistent nighttime routine can help your child to fall asleep earlier or faster, not just your child, but also you. Help them sleep through the night, help promote parent-child bonding, help improve their academic and social skills, encourage growth and development, improve their mood and stress levels, and lay the groundwork for memory, attention, and cognitive skills. So super important to have a nighttime routine. General tips, again, are going to be really common here. Be patient. It usually takes a few nights of getting used to before seeing improvements in sleep if your child isn't used to a routine already. It's going to consist of 3 to 4 activities. We're going to talk about specific ones in the next slide, but 3 to 4 activities, and it should be done at the same time in the same order whenever possible. And to try to cut off stalling, share the responsibility. So again, I mentioned this in the picky eating part, but toddlers can try to assert their independence by acting out, resisting bedtime, not wanting to go to bed, stay up late. I know I did this all the time, apparently. But letting them make decisions like what PJs they want to wear, what book they want to read, what healthy snack they want to have that night. But just sharing the responsibility and you giving the healthy options and they get to pick between them is going to help try to cut off these stalling tactics and maybe make them more excited for their routine and to go to bed if they get to pick. Okay, so finally here we have the tips for having a healthy nighttime routine. So I have the do's and the don'ts. So activities suggested for a nighttime routine can be having a nutritious snack, taking a bath, brushing their teeth, reading a book, singing a lullaby, massage, cuddling, rocking, talking about the day. We'll go over activities that aren't so great for bedtime in the don't, but those are ones that, it's the 3 to 4 activities you could pick and mix and match any of those to make your nighttime routine. But those are some that are recommended to help them kind of wind down. Next is, again, should be consistent and regular as much as possible, should be done at the same time in the same order every night if you can. Limit activities that stimulate your child. So playing, running around, watching TV in the hours closer to bedtime, try to limit those as much as possible. Middle of the night plan. So what this means is if and when your child wakes up and calls for you in the middle of the night, make your go-to routine process the same every single time. So they know what to expect, you know what to expect. And comfort them quickly and then leave the room. Try not to stay in there or sleep in there with them. And I'll talk about why that's important in the don't side also. Should be like 30 to 60 minutes. So shouldn't be super long, but also should be long enough that it actually does something. So the 60-minute side is if it includes like a bath or something, but if it's just like teeth, reading a book, snuggling, things like that, then like 30 minutes probably. It's also recommended that if they have a daytime routine, that is also going to help to promote having more structure and being more tired at bedtime. So making the nighttime routine more effective. Listen to your child. So if it's not working for them, if they don't like reading, they would rather just snuggle the whole time, something like that. Just listen to them and make changes accordingly to what works for them and what works for your family. Keep the bedroom dark, cool, and quiet. Try to keep the rest of your house as dim and quiet as possible as well. This is just a general rule for sleep hygiene. Gradual changes again, so not trying to change everything at once, but just a few at a time and remaining patient. And then leave before they're asleep. So you should leave when they're sleepy, but not fully asleep as much as you can. So if you leave when they're already asleep consistently, that is going to be more likely to teach your child to fall asleep with you in the room, and they will be more likely to not be able to fall asleep without you in the room. So then you're stuck there waiting until they're fully asleep, or they could wake up in the middle of the night, and when you're not there, they're going to panic. So as much as you can, leave before they're fully asleep to try to prevent these things. You can give extra reassurance when you leave the room, like a blanket or a stuffed animal or a doll or something, so that at least have something or someone with them once you leave the room to help them have the comfort when they fall asleep. So the don'ts are going to be, don't start when they're already sleepy. They could be overtired, hyperactive, grumpy. So start when they're not fully sleepy, but it's bedtime, and then they'll get sleepy throughout the process of the routine. Don't let them run around or work themselves into a frenzy at night. They could be too tired to sleep then. They should be getting all their energy out throughout the day, not right before they go to bed, because that can actually give them a second wind and get them more worked up. Also try not to give sugary treats or caffeine. Sugary treats not only have caffeine, but they can also give them cavities if you're having them right before bed. Things like breakfast cereals, chocolate, and pudding can be unexpected sources of caffeine. So maybe like, not having cookies right before bed or something like that, but having like cheese or something that's more mellow before bed instead of caffeine and sugar. Also, don't read scary bedtime stories. Avoid anything super stimulating before bed. Try not to let them sleep in on weekends. Straying from their usual routine more than an hour could give them more problems falling asleep on weekdays. So try to keep as close to your routine as you can. And then finally, do not let them use screens. So the general rule is that you should be turning off all your screens about an hour before bed. So it should be done before you start this nighttime routine. So blue light from TV, video games, other devices has serious consequences for sleep if being used too close to bedtime. So blue lights, there's a lot of studies on blue light from TV and screens that it really can damage your sleep and your ability to fall asleep. So wrapping that up probably like an hour or so before bed is going to be best. So just to recap, for general habits, be patient. Forming habits takes time. Do what's best for your family. Set small attainable goals and work up to bigger ones and more changes. For picky eating, try to be positive and supportive. Help your child listen to internal cues. Don't push or pressure them. Try repeated frequent exposures and encourage positive eating experiences. For body image, be a role model. So remember your influence, prioritize health, not weight, monitor outside exposures, and build self-esteem outside of their physical looks. And then nighttime routines, be consistent. So same order and time every night, no screens, 3 to 4 activities, snack, hygiene, reading, singing, cuddling, etc. So that is it. Does anyone have any questions?
That was a lot of really great information, Maddie.
No, it was a lot. Thank you, though.
No, it was good.
It was a lot.
I'm actually wondering, in addition to the handout, if it would be possible for us to have a copy of your slides to send.
Yes, absolutely.
To people. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions for Maddie, guys? In the chat, I'll read them off, or you can feel free to unmute yourself too if you have a question.
Yeah, I know it was a lot, so you might be digesting, but I found so much good stuff, so I wanted to share all of it, but I know it was a lot.
No. I think the body image stuff, and I think a lot of this is important for all ages of children. Mm-hmm. And body image, like I catch myself, I know my mother as well, like would say like the diet culture stuff, like body image, like she would always like, we're all women here, so she would always like point to this like roll around her stomach and be like, I gotta get rid of this. And I can like remember her doing that, and she still does it to this day. And I just wonder, how did that affect me as a person growing up? So yeah, like things like that really did stick with me when I was a child, and now that you kind of brought that up, I can remember my own experiences with that. And I'm sure everybody else on this call can also pick out something from their childhood that they're like,
oh, didn't realize that.
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad that we decided to include that, because I think that that's just mental health in general is so overlooked. And me too, when I was looking at it, I remember like my friends have, my mom would tell me about things that like girls' moms would say to my mom about their kids, I was like, that's crazy. And it's just, because it sticks with you, and you don't even realize it until you're talking about it. You're like, oh, I didn't notice that. But we don't even, like, even just the good and bad foods thing, I do that. Everyone does that,
That is really hard to get out of that. I also I'm giving this time. If anybody wants to interrupt me, go ahead.
Yes, please
But
go
I'm
ahead.
thinking of also like boys. They sometimes don't get as much of the brunt of the diet culture language. But I've also heard of boys being called like, oh, they're husky. He's a husky boy. And I think things can also affect guys,
too
boys
skinny. Yeah.
as well.
Really
Yeah,
skinny.
yeah. Or they're
Scrawny. Yeah.
scrawny. Yes. Other side as well. So it is for both genders, boys and girls, that can be affected by this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to chat about the survey and I will show the survey prize?
Yes. Okay. So thank you all, first of all, for attending this and to listening to me ramble on for an hour. Thank you for doing the pre-survey. Also, there is going to be a post-survey as well. So the point of that is for me to compare. Again, I can't associate any of the answers with who did it, but to compare what was learned and what you got out of this course. So if you could do the post-survey too, Megan will be sending out an email with the handout, with a copy of my slides, and with the post survey. So you'll have like a week to do it. It's about the same length with the same length as the pre-survey. So super quick, mostly multiple choice, but just to kind of get a gauge of what you learned and what you got out of this course. So I appreciate it if you could do it. And thank you again for doing the pre-survey. I really appreciate it. It's a big help to me. So thank you.
And if you do the pre and the post survey and you send me your email that like the confirmation, like so many of you did, you automatically can swing by the Salvation Army and get a free cookbook. I have a lot of different cookbooks here. This is an example of one. It's Taste of Home, Skinny Slow Cooker. See, there's a diet word again that we don't need to pause.
That one is everywhere.
But these are healthy, fun, quick recipes for a slow cooker, which isn't super quick, but you can put it in at the beginning of the day and take it out at the end of the day for a quick meal. So I have lots of cookbooks to choose from, and I'll invite those who I got a pre and a post from to stop by anytime and grab a cookbook from the Salvation Army. So thank you so much, Maddie, for your time and for presenting today. And in the follow-up email with the survey, we'll be sharing the handout and the slide deck as well.
Thank you guys so much again.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.